Hi. In the previous session, we had looked at what if analysis and we had also looked at solver. Now, in this particular session, we look at some more analytics options which are inbuilt in Excel. Before we jump onto these options, one of the prerequisites is that we need to have the analysis tool pack installed. So I'll just show you again how to install the analysis tool pack. So go to File, click on Options, click on Add-ins, and then click on Analysis tool pack and then click on OK. Now, when you go to the data group, you will have this analyze section over here where you've got solver and data analysis. Now, when you click on data analysis, you've got all these different options which are there. So you've got ANOVA tests, you've got correlation, covariance, descriptive statistics, then F test, moving average, and so on. Now, before we jump onto these options, I've got some random data over here. So I've got 10 students, I've got their height, I've got their weight, and I've got their grades. Now, the first option which we'll start with is descriptive statistics. Now, descriptive statistics are basically numbers or metrics which are used to summarize a given data set. And then using those numbers, we either infer about the entire population or just that particular sample. So for example, if we have millions of data, we might not want to run descriptive statistics over the entire data set because it would be huge. So we might take a sample of it and then calculate these metrics. And then in order to ensure that those metrics hold over the entire population, we might take three or four or maybe more samples and then calculate the same descriptive statistics and see if the numbers are holding throughout those samples. Now, there are two types of descriptive statistics, and they're known as either measures of central tendency or measures of variability or spread. Now, measures of central tendency include metrics like mean, median, mode, and measures of spread or variability include variables like standard deviation or variance. Variance is just the square of standard deviation. Then we've got variables like minimum and maximum, which help us in identifying the range of the data set. And then we've got kurtosis and skewness. Now, as the name suggests, measures of central tendency, they give us information about which value do the other values revolve around, or in other terms, the center position of that particular data set. So for example, over here I've got these 10 students and I've got their heights. So the height starts from 171 to 180. Now let's say if I calculate an average or mean for this particular variable height, it will give me one particular number and I can say that on an average, the height of the students in this class is this much. And coming on to measures of variability, now they help us in analyzing the spread of the data. So over here, if say the average height was 175, but the average height does not tell me how spread out the data is. For example, if the standard deviation is very close to zero, then we can say that most of the data revolves around the mean of the data set. Now let's see how this works. So we'll click on descriptive statistics, we'll click on OK. Now, because I want to calculate descriptive statistics for these three variables, height, weight, and grade, for my input range, I will select all of them together. Now, my first row consists of column headers, basically labels. So I'll click on this. My data is in columns, so that's why this is fine. If it would have been in rows, I would have selected this. Now, let's calculate all of them. For the kth largest, basically this would give me the second largest observation because I've selected two. Kth smallest, this will give me the fourth smallest observation. Let's have the results on a new worksheet. Let's click on OK. Let me just zoom in a bit. Now, on using descriptive statistics, I've got these different metrics calculated for each of these height, weight, and grade variables. So, for example, mean for height tells me that the average or the mean height in the class is 175.2, whereas for the weight it's around 151.4. Then if I look at standard deviation over here, standard deviation is slightly high. So we've got skewness over here. Skewness usually describes a measure of dataset symmetry or lack of symmetry. A perfectly symmetrical dataset will have a skewness of 0. Similarly, kurtosis tells the degree of peakedness of a distribution. If the kurtosis is close to 0, then it is assumed that the data is following a normal distribution. Then we've got measures of spread over here, range, minimum, maximum. So if you look at maximum and minimum, and if you subtract this, you'll get the range over here. Similarly for weight, 161 minus 141 is 20. Then looking at some just sums all the heights together, this sums all the weights together, this sums all the grades together. Count gives me the number of observations over here, so it's 10 for each of them. Now we wanted to look at the second largest. So if I just go back to my data, the second largest observation is 179, the largest is 180. Now for smallest over here, I've got 174. We wanted to look at um, the fourth smallest observation basically. So if you go to data, you've got three observations on 171, and then the fourth one is 174. Now, one thing to note over here is if we change anything in our underlying data, we'll have to calculate these statistics again, as this option is not formula driven. Now, I'll just delete this and then we'll look at the second option. Now, the second option which we'll go through is correlation. Correlation gives us the degree to which two variables are related to each other. For example, with the increase in age, the height of a child also increases, thus making age and height positively correlated. If the variables are inversely proportional to each other, then they are said to be negatively correlated. One of the very simple examples for a negative correlation is your account balance. So, as your expenses increase, your account balance decreases. So, they are moving in different directions. So, that's a negative correlation over there. Now, the correlation values lie between -1 and 1, and a correlation of 0 indicates that the variables are not correlated, but it does not mean that they have no relationship. Now, to use this tool, again, we need to fill in the information in almost similar fashion to what we did for descriptive statistics. So, let's just see how this works. Data analysis. I'll go to correlation, click on OK. For the input range, because I want to have the correlation between height and weight, height and grade, weight and grade. So I'll just select all of them together. Labels in first row. Let's give the output in a new worksheet. Click on OK. So this gives me a sort of a 3 by 3 metric over here. What it is showing me is that definitely relation between height and height is 1, weight and weight is 1, grade and grade is 1. So you can ignore these three values. But if I want to look at the relationship between weight and height over here, it is 0.95. So there's a positive correlation between height and weight. And if you look at in the underlying data also, as our height also increases, the weight also increases. So for example, at a height of 180, the weight is 161. At a height of 179, the weight is 159. And at a height of 171, the weight is at its lowest at 141. So there's a positive correlation over there. Now another correlation over here is between height and grade, which is sort of negative correlation. So what we are seeing is that with an increase in height, the grade is decreasing. Looking at weight and grade, we see a negative correlation again, but it's not that strong as compared to what we had for height and grade over here. Now let me delete this. and then we'll move on to the next option. Now covariance measures the change in one variable when the other variable changes. Covariance can be negative or positive, and its value can range from minus infinity to plus infinity. Now let's go to data analysis. Covariance. Okay. Again, you need to select the data in the same fashion as what we have done so far. New worksheet. Labels in first row. Okay. So now we've got covariance between these variables. One thing to note over here is that when you change your data, you will again have to calculate these statistics as they are not formula driven. Let me delete this. Next, we'll move to rank and percentile. Now, as the name suggests, this option can be used to get rank or percentile for each of the observations in the data set. Now, I've got some random data over here, 20 observations, and let's say I want to rank them, starting with the highest one getting the first rank. So all I need to do is I need to go on data analysis, rank and percentile, click on OK. For input range, let me select this. Okay, labels in first row. Let's get output over here only. So over here in this column, I've got the data points sorted in a descending order. This particular column gives me the position of these data sets in the original data set. So for example, if I apply filters and then sort them, so now you can see that they are in the same order as what they were appearing in the original data set. But let me just sort them back, remove the filters. Over here I've got the ranks 1, 2. For observations which are of same value, it will give the same rank and then it will skip the rank after that. So that's why we don't have any observation having a fourth rank. Then we got 2 on 5, then nothing on 6, 7, 2 values having 8 rank and so on. This particular column over here has the percentile which basically returns the nth percentile from the set of values. So how to read this is that over here it says that 100% of my values are less than equal to 70. This over here tells me that 94.7% of the values are less than equal to 69. 84.2% of the values are less than equal to 68 and so on. Now let's move on to the next, which is sampling. I've got some random data over here, some 100 observations. And sampling basically helps me in generating a random sample. Now let's see how this works. Now let's just select this entire range first. Now there are two sampling methods. One is periodic, in which we'll have to mention a number which is less than the number of observations, and then Excel will pick each observation after that interval. So let's say we specify 5 and let's click on output range, this worksheet itself. Select the output range as this and click on OK. So now you can see the first observation is 53. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then 63 is the second observation which has been picked up over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 87 third and so on. Let's look at the other way, which is random. Now over here we'll have to specify the number of observations we want in our sample. So let's just say 10 observations. And again I'm keeping the output range same as E1. Click on OK. So now I've got 10 random observations picked up from this data set. Now the next option which we'll discuss is the moving average. So basically a moving average is used when we've got time series data, that is data which has been taken over time, like electricity expenditure over days, or say stock price of company ABC, or units sold of a particular item over time. Now moving average is used to smooth out the short term fluctuations or maybe seasonal fluctuations and highlight longer term trends. Now I've got this monthly data over here for 24 months for a company which sells a product, and over here in column B we've got the sales being done in each month. Now let's see how moving average works. Click on OK. Our input range is this. Because we want to smoothen out this particular series of units sold, or we want to see the trend of this. Now let's for interval take 3. So how this works is for 1, 2, 3, Excel will calculate 56 plus 58 plus 78 and then divide it by 3 and put it in front of the third time period. For the time period 4, Excel will then calculate 58 plus 78 plus 87, then divide it by 3 and then put it in front of 4. So it will calculate a 3-month moving average for consecutive months. So the output range, let me just select over here. Let's see, it comes over here. And yes, I'll have the standard errors also. Click on OK. So this is how my data set will look like. This is my moving average and this is my standard error. Let me just format them. Right. So now in front of time period 1 and time period 2, there is no moving average, and that is because we've supplied an interval of 3 months. So for Excel to give a moving average, it will need at least 3 months of data. Now because 1 and 2, we do not have any months preceding them, so that is why Excel gives an error #NA. Then for the time period 3, it gives a moving average of 64, which if you can look over here, it's a formula driven one and it is based on the average of these three. If you move on to the next cell, then it is based on the values or the units sold in second month, third month, fourth month. For 5, it is on the base of third, fourth and fifth month and so on. The standard error over here basically shows the variation between actual values and moving average values. Now let's plot them on a chart. Let's plot a line chart, markers. I'll just remove the grid lines. Now, if you look at the graphs closely, the blue line is the actual units sold, whereas the amber line is based on moving average. So moving average does remove some of the fluctuation over here. So instead of going up and down almost every second month, we see that the units sold peak somewhere between 4 to 6 months and then start decreasing and then again increasing. We'll conclude this particular session over here, and in the next session we'll discuss some of the statistical tests which are present in data analysis, and we'll also cover regression. Thank you. Hi, welcome back. Now in the previous session we had explored some options like correlation, covariance, sampling, rank and percentile. In this session we'll discuss some of the tests which are available in Excel, and then we'll also discuss regression. Now the first test which we'll discuss is ANOVA, and it stands for Analysis of Variance. Now let's say I've got a class which has 30 students and they've been divided in 3 groups of 10 each. Each of the groups is assigned a different math teacher, and then the exam results are assessed to see if the students get the same marks irrespective which teacher taught them. So this is my group A marks, this is my group B marks, and this is my group C marks. And the null hypothesis is that the means across these groups is same. Now the odd thing is that this is ANOVA, which stands for analysis of variance, and our null hypothesis is based on means. But why it is called ANOVA is because we are analyzing variance over here, and thus we will be inferring about the mean or the population. So let's see how this works. I'll go to data, data analysis. I'll click on ANOVA single factor. So this is our data over here. Labels in first row, and let's have the level of significance at 5%, which is 0.05, and I'll have the output in a new worksheet. Click on OK. So this is how my output will look like. Let me just format it a bit. Now for each group, I've got the number of observations, I've got the total number of marks, basically the sum, I've got the average number of marks, and I've got the variance also. Now the second table is the ANOVA table. Uh, this is the source of variation between groups. So this is the sum of squares for between groups. This is the sum of squares for within groups. This is my degrees of freedom. So in total, I had 30 observations, and now I'm left with 29 degrees of freedom. So in very layman terms, just to think of how degrees of freedom works is, let's say you've got 10 numbers, and you want that the sum of these 10 numbers needs to be equal to 100. Now for the first 9 numbers, you can select any number you want. You can select 10 or say 11 or 15 or whatever. But for the last 10th number, you would have to ensure that the number needs to be such that the sum for all these 10 numbers is equal to 100. So that is why for 9 numbers, you've got freedom. So this is a very layman explanation of degrees of freedom. Then you've got mean sum of squares over here. So basically this is calculated by sum of squares divided by the degrees of freedom. Then you've got the calculated f over here, which is this divided by this. And this is the p-value, and this is the f critical or f tabulated value at 5% level of significance. Now in order to test the hypothesis whether this is significant or not, we will compare these two values. So since f calculated, that is 2.422, is less than f tabulated or f critical 3.54, we cannot reject the null hypothesis that all the marks are equal. We can also compare the p-value with the level of significance. Since this is greater than 0.05, which is our level of significance, we cannot reject the null hypothesis. F-test. Now an F-test is used to compare two population variances. The null hypothesis is that the variances of the two populations is same, and the alternative hypothesis that the variants are not same. Let's assume we've got 20 students in a class who are divided in two groups based on their gender, and we need to see if the study hours are different for both the groups or not. So over here I've got the study hours for both the groups. So let's go to data, data analysis, F-test. Variable 1 would be this, variable 2 labels. Let's have this at 5% level significance. Click on OK. So mean is a descriptive statistic, same as variance. So these are my descriptive statistics over here. Then I've got 10 observations. Degrees of freedom is 9. Now my F calculated over here is 0.7948, whereas my F critical is 0.31457. Now this F is calculated by dividing 6.888 by 8.667. Since this F calculated is more than F tabulated or F critical, we reject the null hypothesis that there is no difference between the study hours of the male and the female population. Let's move on to the third test, which is the Z test. Now this test is used to compare means of two sets of data to see if there's a difference. So our null hypothesis is that the means are same, whereas our alternate hypothesis that the means are not same. And now we've got marks of 24 students before and after taking maths coaching classes. Now let's see if there's a difference between the mean of the two populations. So what we'll do, we'll go to data analysis, and we'll use a z-test. Now, one of the prerequisites for this particular test is that you need to calculate the variance also. So let me just cancel this. So I've calculated the variance for both these samples using the formula var.s. So this will give the variance of the two populations. Let's go back. Variable one range, variable two range. Let's say that the mean difference is 0. Let's calculate at 5% level of significance and the output at new worksheet. Click on OK. Now over here I've got the mean, I've got the variance, I've got the number of observations. We were testing for the difference between the mean of the two populations as 0, or basically saying that the mean of the two populations is same. Now using the p-value over here, we can compare it with the level of significance alpha, which is 0.05. Since this value is greater than 0.05, we cannot reject null hypothesis and we accept that the mean of the two populations is same. Now t-test is used to test the null hypothesis that the means of the two populations are same. This test is used when the number of observations in our samples is usually less than 30. For greater than 30, we usually prefer the z-test, which we've just discussed. Now there are three types of t-tests in Excel. The first one is paired to sample for means. That is when the population or sample on which the test is being done is same. For example, marks obtained by a group of 10 students before maths coaching class and after taking maths coaching class. That is, the sample population is the same 10 students, just that their performance is being compared before and after an event. Then we've got two sample assuming equal variance. That is when the samples are different, independent of each other. Let's say, for example, two groups of 10 students being compared with Excel, assuming equal variance. The third one is two samples assuming unequal variances, just similar to two sample assuming equal variance, just that over here the variance is either unknown or different. Now the null hypothesis can be that the mean of the two samples is same, in which case it is a two-tailed test. For a one-tailed test, null hypothesis can be mean of population A is greater than mean of population B or vice versa, with the alternate hypothesis being that the means are different. So we'll over here test that the means are same and the alternate hypothesis that the means are not same. So for a paired two sample test, we'll go to data, click on data analysis, click on OK. Let's put this to 0. Now comparing T statistics this with T critical, T statistics is greater, and hence we reject null hypothesis and conclude that the difference between weight before and after is not due to chance. Let's look at the second t-test with unequal variances or where the variances are not known. So we've got 24 students over here, their marks with tuition and marks without tuition. And these students are independent of each other, so they are not the same students. Let's put this to 0 again. Click on OK. Since T stat is less than T critical, we do not reject the null hypothesis and conclude that the means of the two populations is same. Now let's move on to the last part of the video, which is regression. Now regression is used when we want to estimate the relationship between two or more variables, a dependent variable and independent variables. In simple terms, the independent variables will form an equation which helps in estimating the value of the dependent variable. Over here, the salaries are dependent variable, and we've got two independent variables. One is successful projects and age. So let's say we want to estimate salary on the basis of these two variables. So we'll go to data, analysis, regression, click on OK. Input y range is this, input x range is this, labels, confidence level is 95%, which is fine, and then we'll click on OK. Now in the first table, regression statistics, we've got R square as 0.925, which implies that the model or the equation which we have created over here using the two variables, successful projects and age, that particular equation can explain 92.5% of variation in the dependent variable. The maximum value of R square is 1. So the closer our R square to 1, the better our equation. Now, how to identify the equation over here? So we've got this as our constant plus into successful projects plus into age. So this is our equation. So this is an intercept term over here. This is always going to be constant. Then for each and every successful project, we'll multiply it by 903.04738822. Basically, this is a coefficient for successful projects, and for age, we've got the coefficient as 891.88. Now to see if both these independent variables are statistically significant or not, we look at their p-values, and these p-values should be less than 0.05. Over here, if you look at the p-values, they are very less as compared to 0.05. Hence, all three of these variables are statistically significant. If one of these variables is not statistically significant, then we need to delete that variable and start with the entire model building or equation building again. Now, having discussed regression, we are now through most of the options in data analysis. If got any questions, let us know. Thank you.